Here are things every beginner skater should know. So in this video, I'm basically going to go through 5 main questions. The first being, what is a skateboard made up of? Well, every skateboard is made up of a skate deck, grip tape, trucks, wheels, bearings that go in those wheels, and hardware that holds it all together. So how do I get started? Well, if you're a complete beginner, most skate shops and shops online have these boards called complete boards. These are decent quality boards and they roughly range from like 55 to 75 pounds. Anything less than this is usually a bad quality board and I'd never recommend anyone buying one. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put all the links to the items I put in this video in the description so you can find like a complete board of decent quality. But in comparison to a custom skateboard where you're paying roughly 100 to 125 quid, you know, 75 is a steal. But let's say you're willing to spend a little bit more than the 75. Wow, know this, size is very important. Decks generally range from sizes 7.5 to 9 inches wide, sometimes reaching 10 inches. Smaller boards make tricks easier to do, whereas bigger boards makes riding easier. A good size to start is about an 8 for most. For wheels, there are 2 sizes to pay attention to. Wheel diameter, which is measured in millimeters, and softness, shown by a number between 70 to 110, and a letter A or B following, A being the most common. The wheels I started with were 52 millimeters and 87A, which I actually still prefer to this day. Anywhere between 52 to 54 millimeters and 87A to 91A is good because it provides smooth transition from park to street skating. And for your trucks, just make sure that they fit the size of the deck you choose. So, do bearings matter? You've probably heard that Red's bearings are the best because they're faster, but in my experience, I've never found that to be the case. Usually, when I'm passing through my regular skate shop, I'll just grab some mini logos because for me, as long as they ride, I'm good. So that's basically just the basics of skateboarding. Like, you know all the measurements, you know all about the wheels and things like that. So now we're gonna move on to how to actually stand on a skateboard and how to move. So first off, looking at your skateboard, you'll realize that there's 4 bolts at the top of your board and 4 bolts at the bottom of your board. When you first step on your board, you want to step with your leading foot. So whatever foot feels most comfortable at the front of the board, you want to step with that one. These days, most people ride goofy, which is right foot at the top and left foot at the bottom. But in the past, in history, the most regular way to ride a skateboard was with the left foot at the top and the right foot following. So whatever feels comfortable, you know, just test your legs out. How do you feel? Okay, so now that you kind of know what foot you want to lead with, what you want to do is place that very same foot on the back to front bolts. Okay, so the front bolts that you have on the front of your board, you want to place it so that it covers the bottom 2 bolts, but that the top 2 bolts are still visible. And the reason for this is because this is the most centered part of a skateboard when you ride on it. Okay, so now that you've got that foot on, you want to put your back foot on the back of the board. The way you're standing should kind of be in an L shape, judging from the way you've got on it and where your feet should be. So now I want you to do a little turn with the front foot, just a little turn. So right now, the way you're standing on the board is what I like to call cruise mode, because essentially when you're moving, this is how you want to be standing. But how do you go from being in a stationary position to actually moving and being in cruise mode? So what you want to do is go back to your original position. Your back foot should be off the board and your front foot should be covering the back 2 front bolts. Okay, so now that you're in this position, you want to push off with your back foot and you want to make sure that once you start moving, you put your back foot on the board first and then do the little turn with the front foot. Little turn. Okay? So how do you go back then to push again? You do the opposite. You do the little turn but in the opposite direction, and then you take your back foot off and then you push again. And then hopefully you should be moving. So now we know what a skateboard consists of, what kind of board that we should be getting, and actually now that we've got on the board, how to stand on it. Okay, so what's next? So the last question I'll be answering are, what items or equipment should I have with me as a skateboarder? So 100% as a skateboarder, the biggest item that you will need that will have the biggest impact on you and your just your general travels or your adventures or your outings or whatever you want to call it, the biggest item that you need is a skate tool. Now the reason why I say a skate tool is because this item basically can help you deconstruct or construct a skateboard from literally its bare parts just with this one item. So as long as you've got your hardware materials and you've got all the other items necessary to have a complete skateboard, as long as you have your skate tool with you, you can do anything you want to do. So this tool I would say generally is for the more advanced skateboarders. Not too advanced, but at least you know how to ride and you know how to ollie maybe. But 100% you need to have some wax on you. Wax is so important because say for instance you find a cool ledge spot that hasn't actually been waxed yet, or you do find a spot that's been waxed but you just need that little extra coating just to get you over that last hump. Having wax on you again is essential, and it really shouldn't be underrated. And another thing, you shouldn't expect other people to have the items that you potentially will need on them, because you can't always guarantee that they'll have it. So just make sure that, in your rucksack, in your backpack, in your little purse, if you want to say, if you want to go for that, just make sure you have a little wax on you and you'll be going places 100%. So another thing that, I would say is actually underrated in the skateboarding community, but just making sure that you actually have a skateboarder helmet and some knee pads on hand. I mean, you won't necessarily need to bring them up, with you on every outing, but just having that at your disposal, put it somewhere in your room or your garage or your shed or whatever. Just make sure that you have it. So another item I'd recommend for people to buy are wrist wrap gloves. Now, the ones that I got, I believe were actually more for weightlifting. But I found when I skated with them, they really helped, because if I ever fell over or, took a slam or whatever happened to me, I found that by having these gloves, they were really helpful. And it just kind of supports your wrists. So, the most minimal damage that you can take while skating, whilst doing any sport, that's the one you want to opt for. So yeah, wrist wrap gloves, definitely recommend it. The last item that I'll be recommending is actually more for the people that, say they want to document their progress, or, they want to see what they're doing so that they can check later. I would always recommend getting a tripod. I don't think tripods are too expensive these days, if you check on Amazon. And it just kind of helps you, you see your progress, and then you can document them over the years, and then you can make your own videos. You can show other people some tricks that you got and that you learned. And additionally, because somebody's not always going to be there to film you. And, even in my own experience, say I want a clip, but it might take a while to actually get that trick. So yeah, definitely get a tripod. So for this later part of the video, we basically answered all 5 of the main questions that I found online that are asked quite frequently. So in this part, I'm just going to be doing, a little free for all, a couple things that,
I feel like is helpful, but that didn't make the actual video. But say for instance, if you're very interested and you want to stick around and you've made it to the end of the video, this is for you. And these are going to help improve your skateboarding experience a lot further than just the 5 steps. So just stick around, just hear it out. Okay, so within the metal trucks that we spoke about earlier, and those are those little, those little prongs that stick out from under the wooden deck, and then obviously the wheels are attached onto it. On that metal truck, there's a little thing called a bushing. Now, this bushing is actually quite useful and quite important. And essentially, if you tighten this with the skate tool that was recommended you having in the earlier part of the video, if you tighten this, you will end up actually riding straighter. So, say for instance, with a pressure on the left side or a pressure on the right side of the board, you will not actually move or sway that far away from the direction you're going. But essentially, if you loosen this part, you will notice an extreme change, and you will really be moving, you will really start swaying, and it will be one of them things that you have to actually adjust yourself. This part now is where your individual preference comes to play. You have to adjust this to what you desire, what you feel is comfortable, the tricks that you like to do, the things that you're currently learning. All these different things come to play in this decision. And generally, over time, it will slowly loosen. And as you get used to it, you'll actually feel that, okay, this is the sweet spot. So it's not 100% necessary for you to do it in the early days. And I know a lot of skaters actually like to ride loose. But me personally, I like to ride my board pretty tight, because I like to do a couple pop shoves. I like to do an ollie. And just, when the board lands down and I find it swaying just senselessly, I didn't want to go left, but I'm going left. I just don't like that, you know what I mean? I like to have control, and if I need to go left, I'm gonna do a little kick turn, you feel me, or a little tic tac. I ain't gotta have it like the way these other skaters have. But that's just me. So, just make sure that you do that for you. So bushings on the trucks, loosen it with your skate tool. That's it. So just thinking about my own skating experience, I realized that I actually skate with cabled headphones. And I know a couple of the boys, they got a couple, what are they called, AirPods? Yeah, a couple of them got AirPods. I used to kind of ride with a Bluetooth headset, sorry. So, I am aware that they exist, but personally, I really do prefer the cabled headphones because it can just slip underneath my top. I don't really feel it. It's not really much of a hindrance. And because I've got 2 phones, I've got one good phone, and then I've got a slightly worse phone that can take a couple of hits. It's just a lot easier to just skate with the worse phone. It's got all my music on there, and I can just do my thing and not really have to worry about damaging my AirPods or my headset. So just a note, just have a couple cabled headphones on hand.